In today's video, we take a look at Asian adventures from Iain Lovecraft. Before we get into today's video, just want to talk a little bit about the GGGG for this month. Every month, Bob the Beholder picks one of my Patreon supporters to receive the gratitude gift. I want to give special thanks to my Patreon supporters for this past month. Bob chose Richard M. for the Street Fighter Miniatures game, and Katie received the all-in pledge with Talisman Saber Terrain. Thanks so much to all of you who support my channel. You make it what it is. So thank you so much. And for this month of May 2021, we have so many, I can't even go through all of them. But we have miniatures and terrain from Dungeons and Lasers. We have miniature STL files from Crippled God Miniatures. We have a bunch of pledges for various crowdfunding campaigns, including the Feywood campaign that is happening right now with Iain, and he has offered up 3 all-in pledges for that campaign on my mini factory. And if you're interested, please click on the link below to go to my Patreon page and check out the details for all of the GGGGs that are up for grabs. So for a long time, I looked for Asian-themed STL terrain files to be able to 3D print. And after doing a quick Google search, I found this Kickstarter that was run back in 2019. It was called Hobgoblin Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter had already passed, and so I reached out to the guy who was running the Kickstarter, emailed him and said, hey, do you have any late pledges, or am I able to buy this set somehow? Never heard back from him. So a couple months later, I received notification that the set was available through Humble Bundle. And so I purchased the set there and found out that you could actually buy individual files from DriveThruRPG, which I did. Now, being the only Asian themed set that I found, I did grab those files, but I would highly suggest that you don't buy the files from DriveThruRPG. And even though Iain was the artist that created those digital files, the person who ran that campaign and the files that are available on DriveThruRPG are really rough. I had to go through and get rid of artifacts, modify the files, and all of, including the walls and buildings, assume that you're going to be printing out an entire sort of cobblestone floor for the set, which I wasn't interested in. So I went through and cut off all of the floors from the set. And even this roof, which is supposed to go onto this 2-story building here, had a ton of artifacts which failed the print early on. So I had to modify and fix a lot of them. So do not really buy the files from DriveThruRPG. Instead, get them directly from Iain, and I'll tell you a little bit later how to do that. But I finally did find this set through Iain's last Kickstarter, which was Frost, and saw that he was offering up this as a package because he actually did run a separate Kickstarter for Asian adventures. And so when I saw that, I contacted Iain, and he was gracious enough to send me the updated STL files that he had, because he had a ton to the set, and the STL files that he has prints up fine. So I do want to say that most of what you see here was printed actually from the DriveThruRPG and the Humble Bundle set that I purchased. And the only ones that I printed from the files that Iain sent me is this tower here, as well as this building right here. Otherwise, everything else I did print from the original set. And because of that, the set that you're going to be getting from Iain is slightly different than what you see. The biggest difference is that these city buildings here, all of them are much larger from Iain. They're going to be more the size of this building here. So significantly larger. And because I cut off the floor off of the walls and the buildings, the bottom of his set is different than mine because he also did the same. He did take the floors off or made them optional, but how he did that and where he cut it off is going to be different than, just really slightly different than what you see here. So just keep that in mind. Now, I actually am okay with how much smaller, and obviously you can print out your buildings at whatever scale, you can rescale it to whatever you want. But because of the type of skirmish games that I play, where I rarely have miniatures go inside of buildings, they basically function as just blocking line of sight and structures. Having the smaller buildings for me actually works better because it's easier for my units to be able to move around the outside of the buildings. You know, and I think scale-wise, it still looks fine. But these miniatures, which are from Shadows of Brimstone Forbidden Fortress, they are 32mm scale, just so that you know what you're working with or what you're seeing here from my set. But I am super happy with how this turned out. I thought a long time about what kind of color scheme I wanted to paint this, and am really happy with this color scheme. I think it looks super sharp and looks really, really good. Obviously, this is just displaying all of the buildings. I'm not going to play any game where they're this close together, but amount of detail on these buildings, particularly these city buildings, are amazing. Now, it took me a long time to paint all of the wood slats that are on there, as well as sort of the red accented highlights, but I think it's worth it because I think this set turned out really, really good and looking very sharp with these black roofs. So I'm really happy with this set. And as one of the only Asian sets that I know of, and if you know of other STL files that have Asian themed terrain, please provide link below because this is the only set that I know that's currently available. But it is amazing. And the amount of variety that you're going to get. This is just a very small sampling of the files that Iain has created. I think he's an amazing 3D artist in creating not only this set, but a bunch of other sets. And he's prolific, cranking out tons of files. So just check him out. Links in the descriptions below with his Facebook page, and just check out the amazing things that he produces. So my intention is to use this set for Bushido using my Forbidden Fortress miniatures to proxy in instead of using the Bushido miniatures, and I think this is perfect. And in Bushido, you use a 2-foot by 2-foot board, and I created enough walls, printed out enough walls to create a 2-foot by 2-foot square. But I think I'm going to go ahead and print out even more walls to create more of a 3 by 3 or even a 4 by 4, because my plan is to use this set for Lasting Tales, which is a Kickstarter that just ended from Blacklist Games, and that's a normal fantasy themed game, but my plan is to use it with my Asian themed miniatures as well as this terrain set, which I think is perfect for a game like that. So I'm able to expand the different kind of games that I'll be able to play and use this kind of terrain. And also, if you don't have Forbidden Fortress, Iain has created and includes a bunch of STL files for printing out miniatures. That is part of set. So for $50, around $50 US, this is a fantastic deal because you're getting massive amounts of terrain, more than you'll ever need. And you're going to be able to also print out miniatures if you need those as well. Now, there are two things that I wish was different. And the first one is I wish that these roofs, especially on the city buildings, had some kind of peg system, because right now they just don't lock in place here. They're just sitting on there loosely. And these buildings, though, interestingly enough, do have a peg system where they're a peg that locks it sort of in place and keeps it from moving around. The other thing that I wish is that this set would be available for purchase at any time, because currently I don't know of Iain having an online store. So the only way that you can purchase this is during one of his crowdfunding campaigns. So I'm glad that he makes available all of his previous Kickstarter files as sets, but it sort of limits how available the set is for purchase. Now, he did tell me that at the fall of this year, 2021, he does plan on setting up an online store where people are going to be able to come in and purchase this set, as well as his other previous sets. But until then, the only way to get this is to jump in and purchase it through one of his crowdfunding campaigns. Fortunately, right now he just started one, which is Feywood, so you can purchase it there. And Iain does have a good number of campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns that do happen throughout the year. So if it's not available, just wait a month or two and he will typically have another campaign and you'll be able to purchase it then. But as I said before, you should be able to purchase coming fall of 2021. Other than those two things, this is an amazing set. I think it's fantastic. As you can see here, it looks super, super good. So let's go ahead and go over to the computer and jump on to check out first the Feywood crowdfunder on my mini factory, as well as all of the files that you're going to get if you purchase the Asian Adventure set. So here is the crowdfunder on my mini factory, Feywood, that just launched, and it already has $7,200 raised, which is awesome. But this is primarily an elf and drow crowdfunder with a lot of miniature STL files. So those look awesome for elves, and these mounted Fey look really cool on these panthers. And he also has drow. And Iain is also an artist, so he draws all of these comics that are in his campaigns. Now this is where we get into the terrain, and all of it is sort of elven terrain. I am wondering how the canopies are going to print out, because it looks like it would need a lot of supports. But these trees look really cool. And then this elven bridge looks awesome as well. And here are all of the stretch goals that might be coming. And now here with the add-ons, you're going to have access to all the other previous Kickstarters that he's had. So this Celtic Village, which looks really cool. And then Frostguard, which is terrain that you could use with Frosthaven. This was the most recent one, which has really cool buildings on a huge bridge. This is the Desert Egyptian theme set. And then this is the one that we're concerned with specifically. So if you click here, it goes to the previous Kickstarter. And let's scroll through this real quick because it'll show you what files you're going to receive. And this is $50. So you're actually receiving some of these trees, a bunch of minis. Like I mentioned before, I didn't print out any of the minis. But you have this watermill, and then the pagoda, which I printed out. You have this brewery. And it's cool, he, throughout the campaign, sort of comes out with this comic book storyline, which is pretty cool. And so it isn't just Japanese, but also we have Chinese soldiers here. There's villagers. And then here's the terrain. So the wall set, and as you can see here, he did cut off all of the bases that was in the original files. And I printed out the rural house too, but the watermill looks really cool as well. And then I printed out mostly these city houses, and I chose this roof version right here, but you get this huge variety of not only roofs, but also the bases where you either have these circles or these squares. Smaller pieces of terrain. And the well is what I printed out. But if you want smaller terrain, this shrine looks really cool. And then this is the ultimate, this huge castle, which I would love to print, but I have no place to store such a huge set, but it looks awesome. And then you actually get some scatter terrain, so you have these bamboo pieces. He raised quite a bit of money, so look at that. He unlocked all of these. Junk ship. I'm going to print this out for Street Fighter. It's really cool. He unlocked this Cambodian ruin set. This drum. Also some Thai and a Chinese version of the pagoda. And then this is really cool because I'm Korean. The turtle ship, which is famous in Korean history. At some point I'm going to print this out. But there's also a really cool tea house here, a Chinese tea house. So there you go. Hopefully this video was helpful. Please like and subscribe. And again, check out my Patreon page to look at the GGGG for this month. Stay tuned if you want for the painting tutorial for how I painted up my set. That'll give you some ideas for maybe some different color schemes that are available for this set. And again, check out the links below to go to Iain's Facebook page, get more information on him as a great artist. Otherwise, happy gaming, happy printing. We'll see you next time. So we're going to start off by priming all of our pieces, and I start off with black. All of the roofs are going to be spray painted this flat black. And again, you know, you can decide to paint your roofs different colors if you want. Now I'm going to grab this camouflage Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra cover, and this is the camo sand. I like this color just as a light color, but you can choose to do white and skip the brushing on of white. But the reason why I like this tan is because I get some shading, and that holds true for these buildings as well, so that it isn't just a bright white. Next, I'm going to grab this Krylon camouflage, and this is the camouflage brown. Rust-Oleum does have a dark brown as well, and you can grab that instead. They're basically the same color. And I'm doing all of the wood this dark brown. And then finally, this is the slate, really dark gray. And there aren't that many pieces, but any pieces that have a lot of stone, like the well, as well as the base of the tower, is helpful just to do in this dark gray. Now, if you don't have all of these sprays, you can paint it on. But the first step that I'm going to use is just this white, and I do use craft paints for all of my terrain and buildings just because it's cheaper that way. And as you can see here, I am just brushing on with a stiff hog's hair brush a coat where I'm not completely covering up the tan, because again, I want the shading. And I'm doing the same for the buildings where the light tan acts as shade. So I'm not using a wet brush, but basically just sort of almost dry brushing onto the surfaces like this. And again, it's because I want some of the tan to show through, and it just provides some variation rather than one flat color. So just do that with all of the buildings and the walls. Next, I'm going to be grabbing this pavement apple barrel. This is 50 cents at Walmart, super cheap. But I love this dark gray because it's similar to the spray primer of slate gray. And I do use a wet brush because I want this paint to go into the cracks and crevices of all the stonework. So just paint any of the walls, the bases that are going to be gray or that you want it to be stone. Next up, I'm going to be mixing slate gray as well as zinc just to get a more medium gray. And this is what I'm going to be using to do just one coat of dry brushing and highlighting of the stone that we just painted with pavement. And this just provides, again, some highlighting and variation on the stonework. And don't forget to do the base for the pagoda as well as the base for the well or any other stonework that you have. This is burnt umber from Apple Barrel. This is a dark brown, and I use that now to paint up any of the parts that is wood. Now typically I might mix some black with this to make it a darker brown, but I'm actually not going to be doing multiple coats. Usually I dry brush a lighter brown on top of the wood, but with the corner pieces and with this tree, I'm not doing that, nor with the side of the buildings. I'm just, Again, the reason why I'm not doing a dry brush with a lighter brown, which is typically what I do with wooden pieces, is because there's just so much of this brown to do. And so just doing one solid color makes it faster. And this step just takes a lot of time. So I am going to grab fawn, and because it mimics the camo sand, and going to be using it to put a base coat down on these roofs on the side of them. Now I'm going to be grabbing black and doing all of these roof tiles on the walls. Here I have true red, but you can pick any accent color that you want to have. An emerald green would be good, or a blue. So basically whatever your color scheme you want it to be, this is going to be your accent color, and I just chose red. Here is milk chocolate, and this is what I use to highlight some wood pieces, and I'm going to be using this for the door entryway in the gate. And sometimes you have to do 2 coats of this just because it doesn't show up very well against the dark brown. And here are the pieces.